Warriors. Season 1, 2025. In the not-so-distant future of 2025, the world had fractured into sprawling city-states, each governed by its own laws, beliefs and warriors. Technology and tradition clashed in a world where survival often came down to strength, skill and cunning. Among these city-states, Nova Aegis stood as a beacon of hope and turmoil, a land ruled by a council of elites who relied on the famed warriors to maintain order. The call to arms, Kara was a street fighter from the outskirts of Nova Aegis, a place where the council's influence was weak and life was unforgiving. Her days were spent training in the shadows of abandoned skyscrapers, her nights earning coin by winning underground fights. It was during one of these bouts that a mysterious figure approached her, cloaked in black and whispering her name as if it were a secret. Kara Talon, the figure said, slipping her a holochip. The council has chosen you. Report to the Citadel by dawn. Despite her misgivings, Kara's curiosity won out. The Citadel, a gleaming fortress in the heart of Nova Aegis, was a place of legend. Only those deemed worthy were summoned. By dawn, Kara found herself standing in a grand hall, surrounded by a dozen other recruits, each as skilled and dangerous as she was. They were greeted by Commander Rylos, a grizzled veteran who had seen more battles than anyone dared to count. You have been chosen for a reason, Rylos began. The Council's warriors are not mere soldiers. We are protectors, enforcers, and sometimes executioners. Training begins now. Survive it, and you'll earn your place. Fail, and you'll be cast out, or worse. Trials of the blade, the recruits were subjected to grueling tests, physical, mental, and emotional. Kara quickly learned that this was no ordinary training. Her competitors were equally skilled, each harboring secrets and ambitions of their own. Among them was Dax, a former assassin with a calm demeanor that belied his deadly precision, and Lyra, a tech-savvy strategist whose drones seemed like extensions of her own body. Kara's toughest challenge came during the blade trials, where recruits were pitted against each other in combat. The goal wasn't to kill, but to disarm and disable. Kara's agility and resourcefulness set her apart, but it also made her a target. By the end of the trials, only 8 recruits remained. Shadows of betrayal, as the recruits bonded through shared struggles, alliances began to form. Kara found herself drawn to Lyra's sharp intellect and Dax's quiet strength. But not all bonds were genuine. Whispers of sabotage and betrayal reached Kara's ears, and when one of the recruits was found dead under suspicious circumstances, trust became a scarce commodity. Commander Rylos addressed the group. You are warriors now. But the true test is not just in combat. It's in loyalty, in conviction. Remember, your greatest enemies may not always be the ones you face on the battlefield. The warriors' first mission was to infiltrate a rival city-state, Velmora, and retrieve a stolen piece of technology, a neural core capable of controlling entire networks. It was a test of everything they had learned: stealth, teamwork, and combat. Kara, Lyra, and Dax were paired together, their strengths complementing each other. The mission was a success, but not without cost. A skirmish with Velmoran guards left Lyra injured, and Kara's decision to save her nearly jeopardized the mission. Back at the Citadel, Rylos commended their success, but warned Kara that sentimentality could be a liability. The rising storm, as the warriors settled into their roles, tensions within Nova Aegis began to rise. A rebel faction known as the Shadowhawks emerged, targeting council facilities and claiming to fight for the oppressed. Their leader, a charismatic figure named Silas, called for the city's complete dismantling. Kara found herself questioning the council's motives. Were the Shadowhawks truly the enemy, or was there truth to their claims of corruption? Her doubts deepened when she uncovered evidence of the council's harsh measures against dissenters. Bonds and breaks, Kara confronted Rylos, demanding answers about the council's actions. The commander's response was cryptic, but firm. The truth is never simple, Kara. The council has its flaws, but without order we have nothing. Choose your side wisely. Her growing distrust put her at odds with her teammates, especially Dax, who believed in the council's mission. Lyra, ever the pragmatist, urged caution, warning Kara not to act rashly. The season climaxed, with the Shadowhawks launching a full-scale assault on the Citadel. As the city burned, Kara faced an impossible choice: defend the council she no longer trusted or side with rebels whose true intentions remained unclear. In the chaos, secrets were revealed, alliances were tested, and sacrifices were made. As dawn broke over a scarred Nova Aegis, Kara stood atop the Citadel, the weight of her decisions heavy on her shoulders. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. With more questions than answers, Kara's journey as a warrior was only beginning. The lines between hero and villain blurred, and the future of Nova Aegis hung in the balance. Would she rise to become the leader the city needed, or would her doubts consume her? The awakening the city of Alastria had always been a place of wonder, a sprawling metropolis where technology and mysticism intertwined seamlessly. Neon lights and hovering transport pods lined the streets, casting vibrant colors over the ancient, weathered architecture. Beneath the gleaming surface, however, something darker simmered, and its tendrils were creeping through the city's veins. In the underbelly of Alastria, a group of individuals began to stir, unaware that their fates were about to collide. These were the warriors, individuals imbued with ancient powers, chosen by the mysterious force known only as the Arcane. Their abilities ranged from manipulation of elemental forces to supernatural senses, but they were all bound by one thing: their connection to an ancient, forgotten battle. The call to arms. The first of the warriors to awaken was Kala, a street-smart hacker with the power to manipulate digital constructs. Kala had always been drawn to the city's darker corners, but it was during a routine hacking job that things took an unexpected turn. She found herself inside a hidden network, one that no mortal was meant to access, and there, the Arcane spoke to her. "You are chosen," the voice echoed in her mind, sending a jolt of energy through her body. Her fingers crackled with an electric force she had never known. It was as if the entire city's digital grid had suddenly become her playground. But with her newfound abilities came a horrifying vision: a city on the brink of destruction, a war that only she could prevent. Frightened but determined, Kala sought out the others. She wasn't the only one who had been marked. Gathering the warriors meanwhile, across the city, a man named Valen had been living a quiet, mundane life, working as a security officer. His memories, however, were fragmented, pieces of his past constantly slipping through his fingers. The mysterious dreams that haunted him, the whispers of long-forgotten battles, and the strange visions all pointed to something far greater than his current existence. One night, he encountered a shadowy figure. The figure's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and in an instant, Valen's dormant powers surged. Fire. Not a simple flame, but a raging inferno that consumed his body. As his transformation completed, he could feel the warmth of his past life rushing back to him, the blooded fields of battle, the cries of his fallen comrades. "You are the Firebearer," the shadow whispered, before vanishing into the ether. The Seeker. Kala and Valen's paths converged when they both received an encrypted message, urging them to meet at an old, abandoned warehouse near the city's outskirts. Neither knew what to expect, but when they arrived, they found others, more warriors, each bearing different powers and secrets. There was Myra, a quiet and calculating woman with the power to manipulate time itself. She could slow the world around her, bending the fabric of reality to her will, but her powers came with a price. Every time she altered time, a piece of her own soul was chipped away. Next, there was Tarek, a massive figure with an uncanny ability to control metal. His strength was unmatched, his connection to the earth ancient, and his mind as sharp as the blades he could conjure from the air. But beneath the stoic exterior, Tarek wrestled with a terrible secret. He could sense the impending collapse of his own world. Then came Ilara, a healer with the power to mend not just flesh, but the very essence of life itself. Her connection to the arcane was tenuous, and she could feel it slipping away with each passing day. There were whispers that she was the last of a bloodline once revered for its ability to restore balance to the world. Together, they were a ragtag group, but their unity was the key to unlocking the forces that threatened their city. The first strike, the group began training, learning to harness their abilities and form strategies. But as they did, dark forces were already on the move. An ancient order, known only as the Black Coil, had risen from the shadows. They were once the protectors of Alastria, but their fall from grace had twisted them into something far more dangerous, agents of chaos, bent on rewriting the world in their image. The Black Coil's leader, a figure known as the Wraith, had long searched for the warriors. His thirst for ultimate power drove him to seek out the arcane, and he believed that only by obtaining their combined abilities could he reshape the world. In the heart of Alastria, the first attack came. The warriors fought valiantly, but the Wraith's minions, spectral soldiers forged from the very essence of darkness, proved nearly unstoppable. It was during this battle that Kala realized the full extent of her powers. Her control over the digital world extended into the physical realm. She could manipulate energy, creating barriers and weapons from thin air. Valen's flames raged out of control, engulfing the enemies in a blaze that scorched everything in its path. Myra bent time to slow down their enemies, but each shift took a heavy toll on her. The battle ended in a draw, but the warriors knew one thing for certain: the war had only just begun. The revelation, with the battle still fresh in their minds, the warriors regrouped at their hidden base. It was there that they received the full history of their origins. Thanks to a cryptic message from a long-dead ancestor of Tarex, the arcane was not merely a power. It was a force tied to the very fabric of the universe, a living entity that sought balance. The warriors were not just chosen by fate, they were part of an ancient prophecy. They were the last hope to prevent the total collapse of their world, a world teetering on the edge of oblivion. The Black Coil, led by the Wraith, was but a symptom of a much greater disease. As the episode ended, the group made a pact. They would not run from their destiny. They would fight not just for Alastria, but for the very survival of their world. Rise of the Wraith. In the season finale, the warriors confronted the Wraith in an epic showdown. The battle took them through the neon-lit streets of Alastria, into the deepest catacombs beneath the city, and into the heart of the arcane itself. The Wraith revealed his true form, a being of pure darkness, an entity that had once been a guardian of the arcane, but had fallen to corruption and madness. His goal was simple: to break free of the arcane's constraints and become the new god of this world, reshaping everything in his image. The warriors, pushed to their limits, combined their powers in a desperate bid to stop him. Valen's fire clashed with Myra's time manipulation, while Tarek's metal war machines collided with Kala's digital constructs. Ilara's healing power flowed like a river, mending wounds and empowering her comrades. In the end, it was Kala who struck the decisive blow. Using her ability to hack into the very fabric of reality, she severed the Wraith's connection to the arcane, casting him into the void. But as the Wraith fell, something else shifted. A new power, darker and more insidious, began to rise in the shadows. The warriors had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The first season of Warriors concluded with the promise of more to come. A new threat loomed on the horizon, and the warriors would need to gather more allies if they were to survive the trials ahead. Shadows of the past. The battle against the Wraith had cost the warriors dearly. While the immediate threat had been neutralized, the victory had not been without consequences. As they gathered to heal and regroup, the city of Alastria began to show signs of a deeper disturbance. The arcane, which had once held the balance of the world, now seemed fractured. Energy surges disrupted the once stable networks, and strange phenomena plagued the city: time anomalies, pockets of twisted reality, and shadowy figures lurking in the corners of the streets. The warriors, still reeling from the previous battle, knew that something far worse was emerging. Kala, now the de facto leader of the group, began to dig deeper into the origins of the arcane. Her skills as a hacker had become even more potent, and through her connections, she uncovered long-forgotten texts, fragments of ancient scrolls that hinted at a deeper conspiracy. She discovered that the arcane was not a singular entity, but a collection of forces, each one tied to a different element of creation. The Wraith, it seemed, was merely the first of a series of broken guardians, individuals who had once been protectors of these elemental forces, but had been corrupted by their own lust for power. And the Wraith's fall had opened a dangerous rift in the arcane, allowing something worse to rise in its place, the corruption. A fractured world. As Kala's research deepened, Valen struggled to contain the volatile nature of his powers. The fire inside him had always been a part of him, but after his battle with the Wraith, it had grown uncontrollable. He could feel the flames reaching deeper into his soul, consuming him from the inside out. Desperate to find answers, he sought out Myra, who, with her mastery over time, had been trying to unravel the timelines that bound their fates together. Myra's manipulation of time had become more erratic after the Wraith's defeat. Each alteration she made to time caused paradoxes, and every change left her more disconnected from the present moment. She had begun to experience not just the future, but also fragmented memories of the past. The warriors' destinies were tied to an ancient cycle, one that had repeated itself throughout history. The arcane powers they wielded were not new, they were echoes of battles fought long before their time, battles they had no memory of, but which had shaped the world in ways they couldn't yet understand. With her powers waning, Myra made a chilling discovery: the corruption was not an external force. It had been born from within the arcane itself. It was the dark counterpart to the energies of creation, a force that had always existed in balance with the light. The Wraith's destruction had unshackled this force, and now it sought to corrupt the very essence of Alastria. Into the abyss. Determined to stop the corruption from spreading, the warriors set out on their first mission beyond the city. Their journey took them into the heart of the wastelands, where the ruins of ancient civilizations lay buried beneath sand and dust. The Citadel of Solace had been lost to history, but Tarek's knowledge of the Earth led them to its location. The journey was perilous, with the group constantly harassed by strange creatures born of the corruption, twisted remnants of once living beings, now corrupted into monstrous forms. These abominations were drawn to the warriors' presence, sensing their connection to the arcane. The group fought fiercely, using their combined powers to hold back the oncoming tide of horrors, but it wasn't just monsters they had to worry about. As they neared the Citadel, they encountered the Keepers, elite warriors from an ancient order, charged with protecting the secrets of the Citadel. These Keepers, however, had been corrupted long ago, and now served as agents of the dark force that threatened the world. The warriors fought their way through the Keepers' defenses, only to discover that the true power of the Citadel lay not in its ancient artifacts, but in its heartstone, a powerful relic capable of either sealing or unleashing the corruption. Echoes of the fallen. The warriors reached the heart of the Citadel, where they found a sealed chamber. Inside, the heartstone of Solace pulsed with a sickly, black light, radiating an oppressive aura that seemed to suffocate everything around it. But before they could act, they were confronted by an unexpected figure, Ilara. The healer had disappeared during the final battle with the Wraith, and her sudden reappearance shocked the group. But Ilara was not the same. Her once kind eyes were now clouded with a darkness that mirrored the corruption they had been fighting. "I was called to this place," Ilara said, her voice cold and distant. "The corruption, it is not our enemy. It is our salvation." Ilara revealed that she had been chosen as the new guardian of the Heartstone. The arcane had not been corrupted, it had evolved. The Heartstone, which was once a source of creation, now offered the chance for rebirth, to reshape the world into something more powerful and unified. She had accepted the corruption in exchange for ultimate knowledge and power. Her betrayal cut deep, as the warriors had trusted her. But they knew that they had no choice but to stop her. The battle inside the Citadel became a desperate struggle, as Ilara's power over life and death clashed with the warriors' determination to protect their world. The final choice in a climactic confrontation, Kala and Tarek managed to wrest control of the Heartstone from Ilara, but not without paying a terrible price. Kala's powers, which had been expanding since the defeat of the Wraith, reached their limit. The overload of energy caused a massive explosion, and the Heartstone shattered. The resulting shockwave ripped through the Citadel and sent ripples through the fabric of reality itself. The corruption began to recede, but it left behind a profound change. The landscape of Alastria itself began to warp. Time shifted erratically, and some areas of the city were sent hurtling into the future, while others were dragged back into the distant past. With Ilara's fate sealed, the warriors returned to Alastria, unsure of what the world would become. They had won a hard-fought victory, but the destruction of the Heartstone had changed the arcane forever. As the season concluded, the group was left with a chilling realization: the corruption was not gone. It had merely adapted, evolving into something even more dangerous, and its influence had spread beyond the boundaries of the known world. The fractured reality Alastria was no longer the city it had once been. Since the shattering of the Heartstone, the world had become unstable, a fractured mosaic of timelines and realities colliding and overlapping. Entire districts were locked in pockets of different eras, with people from the past and future unknowingly coexisting, while other areas of the city seemed to shift between night and day in an endless loop. Time itself had been bent, twisted, and broken in the wake of the Heartstone's destruction. The warriors, having barely escaped the chaos within the Citadel of Solace, returned to find their world teetering on the brink of collapse. Their first priority was to stabilize the city, but as they ventured deeper into the newly warped Alastria, they realized that the corruption had not only survived, it had grown. Kala, now the de facto leader of the group, began piecing together the fragmented clues from the past and the cryptic warnings that had appeared in the city's digital systems. Something far darker than they had ever anticipated was at play. The corruption, it seemed, had become a sentient entity, a force that could manipulate the very fabric of space and time, feeding off the energy left in the wake of the Heartstone's destruction. The city's once powerful arcane energy had been divided, its elemental forces now scattered and unstable. Without the Heartstone to maintain balance, the corruption had begun to spread its influence, creeping into the city's core and beyond, infecting both the physical and metaphysical realms. Allies from the past. With the situation worsening, the warriors had little choice but to seek out allies. Myra, who had grown even more distant and unstable since the destruction of the Heartstone, was determined to reverse the damage done to the timelines. Her time manipulation powers were no longer a simple tool, they had become a necessity. But the more she used them, the more she felt herself slipping away, as if the very essence of time was trying to erase her from existence. Desperate for help, the group turned to an unexpected source: the Shardkeepers, an ancient order once tasked with safeguarding the temporal lines. These secretive beings, who had long been rumored to exist on the fringes of history, had the knowledge and power to guide them through the time anomalies threatening to tear the city apart. Led by a mysterious figure known only as the Seer, the Shardkeepers had maintained hidden sanctuaries throughout the city, places where the fabric of time was less susceptible to the corruption's influence. The Seer, an enigmatic figure with a fractured past, revealed shocking truths about the arcane's origins. The Heartstone was not the first of its kind. It had been one of a series of stones, scattered across the world, each connected to one of the ancient elements of creation. These stones were not meant to be used as weapons or tools of power, they were anchors, designed to keep the balance between the light and dark forces of the universe. The Heartstone's destruction had caused a catastrophic ripple, breaking the other stones free from their bonds, and now, the other elemental forces were awakening. The Seer offered the warriors a choice. They could attempt to reclaim the broken stones, or they could risk allowing the corruption to fully consume the world. The first stone they would need to retrieve was the Storm Stone, an ancient relic said to control the forces of air and lightning, buried deep within the floating islands of the Celestial Archipelago. Episode 3. The Celestial Archipelago. The journey to the Celestial Archipelago was perilous. The islands, suspended high above the clouds, were not easily accessible, and they had been largely abandoned after the fall of the Old World. However, the Shardkeepers had hidden a key, a map to navigate the storm-torn skies that surrounded the islands. the group set off on a journey through the turbulent skies, their vessel dodging lightning storms and strange creatures that thrived in the violent winds. As they approached the islands, they encountered the Tempests, a race of ancient beings that had once been the keepers of the Storm Stone. Now, however, they had fallen under the influence of the corruption. The once proud guardians of the sky had become monstrous, their bodies writhing with dark energy. Valen, still struggling with his volatile powers, found himself pushed to the limit as the Tempests assaulted their ship with powerful gusts and electrical strikes. His flames, normally an unstoppable force, seemed to be at odds with the storm's violent energy, making him question his own control. The battle was fierce, but the warriors eventually managed to breach the heart of the celestial archipelago. The unmaking. With their newfound clarity and unity, the warriors pooled their strengths together. Myra, controlling the flow of time itself, slowed the chaotic ripples of Vethragar's influence long enough for Kala to hack into the very fabric of the void. Tarek, his connection to the earth and metal now fully awakened, began to channel the elemental power of the land, turning it into a powerful weapon. Valen, at the center of it all, summoned the full force of his flames, a concentrated fire that burned away the very essence of the darkness. The combined power of the stones, the Storm Stone, the Flame Heart, and the Earth Stone they had forged through their bond, struck at Vethragar with a force unlike any they had faced before, and then they shattered it, not in a violent explosion, but in a quiet, final unraveling. The void itself seemed to collapse upon itself, the threads of reality slowly coming undone. But in the end, it was not destruction, but restoration. As Vethragar was torn apart, its influence faded, and the corruption began to retreat. The warriors, battered but triumphant, stood in the aftermath. The void was gone. The entity was gone. The city of Alastria, though scarred, began to heal. The final episode saw Alastria beginning its long process of recovery. The timelines were realigned, and the corrupted areas of the city began to return to their original states. But the world was forever changed. Myra, now fully in control of her time-altering powers, became a guide, helping to restore balance to the city's fractured timelines. Tarek, with the Earth Stones now at his command, helped rebuild the infrastructure of Alastria, ensuring the city would be stronger than before. Valen, though still wrestling with his inner fire, now sought to teach others how to control their own powers. Kala, having faced the darkness within and emerged as a true leader, oversaw the restoration efforts, leading the people toward a new era of hope, but the battle was far from over. The corruption had been banished, but the world would never be the same. The warriors now knew that balance could never be taken for granted. They had won the war, but the true peace would take a lifetime to achieve, and in the distance, a new light flickered on the horizon. The story of the warriors was far from finished.